Okay, so let's dive in. Imagine English spelling is a map.
Right.
And pronunciation is, well, the actual terrain. Sometimes that map is perfect, you know?
Yeah, and sometimes, well, it looks like a total mess.
Exactly. Navigating English pronunciation can feel just like that. You see the spelling, you think you know how it should sound.
And then you hit a word that just, doesn't play fair.
That's a classic challenge, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. English has absorbed words from so many other languages over the centuries, and it hasn't always bothered to standardize the spelling to match the sound. This creates real tripwires, not just for learners, but honestly, even for native speakers sometimes.
Totally agree. So for this deep dive, we've pulled together a stack of sources looking at those, notorious words.
The tricky ones.
Yeah, the high-frequency ones, the sneaky formal ones, the ones that consistently cause confusion. Our mission, really, is to shine a light on these pronunciation puzzles.
Figure out why they're tricky.
Right. Explore why. Get the correct sounds down, and ultimately give you the tools to, sharpen your speech for greater clarity and confidence.
Think of it as getting a better GPS for the English landscape. You want to make sure the words you choose land clearly, effectively.
So your message is the focus, right? Not how you stumble over a particular word.
Exactly.
Okay, let's jump right into some words you probably see every day, but which hide some surprising pronunciation traps. First up, that midweek workhorse, Wednesday.
Yes, most people look at the spelling.
And think Wednesday.
Wednesday. And that's the common mistake, trying to pronounce every part you see. Maybe Zatranya.tana.d.
Okay.
But listen to how it's usually said. Malu ilit.d. When enzi day. So that D is just gone.
Completely silent, yeah. In standard pronunciation. And those middle syllables, they just compress. Yeah, the insight here is that spoken English often reduces unstressed sounds. It pulls words together more tightly than the spelling might suggest. It really flows into two main syllables.
Okay. Syllable reduction. That sounds like a key nugget right there. It's not just random, it's a pattern.
It is. It really is. Hear it in a sentence. Let's schedule the meeting for Wednesday afternoon.
Wednesday day afternoon. Yeah, you naturally skip that D.
You do.
Okay, so look out for silent letters and syllable squeezing. That brings us to another one often squashed. Comfortable.
Oh, yeah.
I hear this stretched out to 4 syllables all the time. Comfortable.
You do. That's the mistake. Comfortable. But native speakers almost always reduce it. The correct pronunciation is oakt mf.ta.bl cumf tubul p.
CUMF tubul. 3 syllables.
3 syllables.
It looks like 4, sounds like 3. How does that happen?
Well, that unstressed middle vowel often becomes a schwa, that kind of muffled ooh sound, like the A in about.
Ah, the schwa. Right, I've heard of that.
Yes, that's the sound that often disappears or reduces, especially in faster speech. You'll see it a lot in phonetic transcriptions, the symbol.
Could put a name to that sneaky sound.
Okay.
So, syllable reduction, schwa. Does that apply to vegetable too? It follows a very similar pattern.
It looks like vegetable. 4 syllables again.
But it sounds like sev.bl. VEJ tubul.
VEJ tubul.
Yeah.
3 syllables, not 4. Okay, so syllable reduction is a major theme for words like comfortable and vegetable.
It really is. Now, here's a classic pairing where stress is everything. Dessert versus desert.
Yes. Same letters, mostly.
Same spelling, yeah. But wildly different sound and meaning.
The sweet treat versus the sandy wasteland.
Precisely. So if you want that sweet reward, dessert, the stress is on the second syllable. Desert.
Dessert.
But if you're talking about the dry land, the desert, the stress shifts. It goes to the first syllable. Desert.
Easy ear for the dry place, dessert for the cake. Cool. Got it. The stress changes everything.
It really does. Messing that up could cause some funny confusion.
Yeah, I'd take chocolate dessert.
Over any desert hike. Makes a very different kind of sense.
All right. Okay, now this next one is a bit of a historical head-scratcher. It looks like it should be related to colon, but sounds nothing like it. Colonel.
Right. It looks like colon, maybe?
Yeah.
But the pronunciation is shakir NL, kernul.
Kernel.
Exactly like kernel, as in a popcorn kernel.
Colonel spells K-E-R Nuul. My map is definitely wrong here. What happened?
This is where English history gets really weird. The spelling came from French, but the pronunciation in English military contexts was influenced by the Italian word colonnello, which became coronel in Spanish, and that R sound kind of stuck in the pronunciation while the spelling kept evolving elsewhere. It's a true linguistic fossil.
Wow.
The nugget here is that sometimes spelling is just, well, it's a historical artifact you have to ignore.
Wow, tangled up in military history across different languages. That's fascinating. So you just have to learn that colonel is K-E-R, share. End of story.
Pretty much. Trust the sound, not the spelling map on that one.
Another silent letter culprit, this one often seen on dinner plates, salmon.
Yes, S-A-L-M-O-N.
Does the ol get a sound? I feel like I hear it sometimes.
Nope, that's the common mistake, trying to pronounce that L. The correct pronunciation is asimpalrun, semun.
Simun. Okay, so the L is silent, just like in calm or palm.
Exactly, just forget it's even there.
They served grilled salmon with lemon and herbs. Simun, got it.
Simple when you know the rule. Or, well, the lack of rule.
Right. Okay, how about recipe? R-E-C-I-P-E. This one feels simple, but I've definitely heard variations.
Yeah, sometimes people maybe overpronounce the last syllable, or say something like recipe. Like kernel, it's borrowed, this time from French. But in English, it's pretty straightforward.
P, R-E-S-U-P.
R-E-S-U-P.
That middle vowel is, guess what? A schwa again. Short as sound.
Short and sweet then. Can I have the recipe for this soup?
Perfect. Okay, moving on to the calendar. The month after January often causes a bit of a stumble. February.
F-E-B-R-U-A-R-Y. Okay, I hear February a lot, just skipping that first R. That's a very common reduction, yeah. Especially in casual, fast speech. But the more standard, careful pronunciation does include that R-E-F.R.I. F-B-Ru.
F-B-Ru. Airy.
F-V-Ru-Airy. It does take a little extra effort to hit that R, doesn't it?
It does. It feels a bit strange, maybe.
But that's the technically correct sound, especially in careful speech.
Right. My birthday's in February. Making an effort for that R can make your speech sound, a bit more precise.
Precision matters. Okay, next. A word describing total confusion. Chaos.
Yeah.
C-H-A-O-S.
Right. And it starts with E-H.
Which usually sounds like T, like in chair.
But here that C makes a hard K sound, just like in character or orchestra.
Ah, okay.
So the mistake is chaos. The correct pronunciation is K. Chaos.
Chaos. So chick and peas sometimes. Another English curveball.
Absolutely. It was from Greek originally. The blackout caused total chaos in the city.
Chaos. Got it. And finally, for this first set, that grain that's become super popular, but whose spelling trips almost everyone up. Quinoa. Oh, this word is a fantastic example of the map being completely useless. Q-U-I-N-O-A.
Yeah, what do people usually guess? Quinoa. Something like that.
Exactly. Quinoa or quin-o, but the correct pronunciation, goose. Quinoa.
Quinoa. Spelled Q-U-I-N-O-A. Where does that come from?
It originates from Quechua, the language spoken in the Andes. It came into English via Spanish.
Oh.
So it follows none of the typical English spelling sound rules at all. The nugget here is some words are pure imports and you just have to learn their sound by listening. Don't trust the spelling.
So for quinoa, trust your ears, not your eyes. Quinoa. Wow, okay, that covers some common daily words with definitely hidden traps.
Yeah, quite a few pitfalls there.
Let's maybe step into some words you might encounter in more formal or academic settings. These can challenge even proficient speakers.
And mispronouncing them can sometimes feel a bit more, jarring.
Exactly, a different set of puzzles. First, something you might find after, say, a building collapses. Debris.
D-E-B-R-I-S.
Right, it looks like debris, maybe. Stress on the first syllable. Strextenti.
That's the common misstep, yeah. But this word is borrowed directly from French.
Ah, French again.
And like many French loanwords, that final zuz is silent, and the stress is on the second syllable. The correct pronunciation is Jabri.
Jabri, like debris.
Exactly.
That silence stress on the second syllable. Another French influence nugget.
Precisely. After the explosion, broken glass and debris littered the street. Debris.
Got it. Okay, next, a word meaning the perfect example of something. Epitome.
E-P-I-T-O-M-E. This word looks very Greek, right?
It does.
And the mistake is often trying to pronounce that final E as a long sound, like japidyo.tiapin, epitititum.
Yeah, that sounds plausible from the spelling.
But the correct pronunciation is kiesohmi.
Hemisom. So that final E is really a short E or maybe even a schwa sound. And the stress is on the pit. I-P-I-T, kimi.
Exactly right. Don't give that final vowel too much emphasis or turn it into its own separate syllable. Using the correct pronunciation here, setat time, can make you sound much more, authoritative.
Yeah, I can hear that. She's the epitome of grace and professionalism. Saying the Ntarabi definitely sounds more confident than a Jessalande.2.
It adds a layer of polish. How about subtle? S-U-B-T-L-E.
Ah, the silent letter king.
Another one. The B is completely silent. The mistake is pronouncing it. S-U-B-T-T-L, subtle.
Right.
The correct pronunciation is just est-l.
Like subtle. No B sound at all.
None. The B is just a relic from its Latin spelling, subtilis. It's just hanging around doing nothing in the sound.
Okay. There's a subtle difference between sarcasm and cruelty.
We'll tell.
Mispronouncing it isn't fatal, maybe, but getting it right adds that polish, like you said.
Exactly. Subtle B. Got it.
What about the path between shelves in a store or seats on a plane? A-L. A-I-S-L-E.
Looks like it might have an es sound, maybe, or start with A.
Yeah, A is
But the S is silent here, too. The pronunciation is simply an ol.
Oh, whoa. It sounds exactly like the word isle, meaning a small island.
Or I'll, as in I will.
Right. A wall. Okay, another silent letter. Please move your bag from the aisle to avoid blocking people.
Correct. Silent S in aisle. Following a similar pattern, the next one, pseudonym.
P-E-U-D-O-N-Y-M. Looks intimidating.
It does, but when you see S at the beginning of a word in English, the P is almost always silent.
Like psychology.
Exactly like psychology. So the mistake is trying to pronounce that P. The correct pronunciation is sessidatonym.
Sessidatonym. So it sounds like pseudonym, silent P. That's a helpful pattern to remember.
It is. The author published under a pseudonym to protect her privacy. Pseudonym.
That makes perfect sense now.
Okay.
This one looks tricky just from the vowels. Gauge. G-A-U-G-E. As in to measure something.
Yeah, the spelling is quite irregular for its sound. It leads to guesses like O's, gorg.
Yeah, I could see that.
But the correct pronunciation is O.
Quiet. It sounds like gauge, like a measuring device itself is sometimes called a gauge.
Exactly.
The O makes an A sound and the G makes a J sound.
Right. Think of the word stage. It has a similar ending sound. Steed, aid.
Ah, good comparison. We need a better tool to gauge employee satisfaction. Aided. Getting these irregular ones right definitely boosts credibility.
It does. Next, a word often used in, say, contracts or warnings. Caveat.
C-A-V-E-A-T.
Okay. This comes straight from Latin. The common mistake might be treating it like caveat, maybe? Or scave?
Yeah, maybe stressing the first part.
But the correct pronunciation is adjective.I.ae. All three syllables are pronounced clearly.
Yes, and the stress is on the first one. Not cave-ate, but C-A-V-8.
K-A-V.
Okay. Precisely. Mispronouncing this one can make you sound a bit less formal or perhaps less knowledgeable in a professional context.
I see. You can invest, but there's a caveat. Your funds are locked for 3 years. Though sits cave.I.ad. Clear pronunciation matters there. Definitely. Now here's another French import that just totally defies the spelling rules. Quay. Q-U-A-Y. Where ships load.
Quay. Okay. How does that sound? You might guess quay or quay.
Those are logical guesses based on English patterns, but the pronunciation is kisses.
Kisses. Like K-E-Y, the key that opens a door.
Exactly like key.
Q-U-A-Y sounds like K-E-Y. English spelling is just amazing. I mean, really.
It truly is sometimes. This is a loan word that just kept its French sound, the nugget. Sometimes English just borrows a word and keeps the original pronunciation, completely ignoring its own spelling rule.
Okay. The ship was docked at the quay for loading. At the Catisse, mind officially blown again.
It's a good one. Okay, almost there. Hierarchy, like the structure of power.
H-I-E-R-A-R-C-H-Y.
The mistake here is often skipping that vowel sound right after the I, making it sound like hurrah, artistic. H-I-R-key.
Right, kind of smoothing it over.
Yeah, but the correct pronunciation is hurrah. That is a hierarchy.
Hierarchy. So with hierarchy, you need that little sound in there. Don't smooth over that second vowel.
Right. A smooth transition between higher is important. Mispronouncing this one in, say, a professional meeting can be quite noticeable.
I can imagine. There's a rigid hierarchy in many corporate environments. Okay, final word in our list.
Let's do it.
Something you do to smoothly move from one topic to another. Segue. S-E-G-U-E.
Looks like it should be seg, maybe, or C-G, but it's an Italian loanword, actually, and it keeps its two-syllable sound. Hair-R.we.
Care-ter.we. Segway. Like the personal scooter thing. Spelled differently, of course.
Exactly like that. Same sound.
Huh. Okay, let me segue into the next topic.
You like it?
Ezra.we.
You got it.
Fantastic. Wow. We've navigated quite a few tricky corners of English pronunciation today.
We definitely have. A good mix of common and more formal words.
Let's do a quick run through, maybe just hitting the correct sounds for some of the key ones we highlighted.
Sounds good. A quick recap. Silent D in Wednesday.
WMZ day.
Syllable reduction in comfortable and vegetable.
CUMF, tobul. VEJ, tubul. 3 syllables.
Stress shift for dessert versus desert.
Yezert, sweet, versus desert, dry.
The historical oddity kernel.
Kernel, like a kernel. Can't forget that one.
Silent ol in salmon.
Salmon. Easy peasy.
The weird spelling quinoa.
Quinoa. Trust the ears.
Exactly. And those tricky formal words. Debris.
Debris. Silent S. Stress on the second syllable.
Wikidomy.
Stress on pit. Short final vowel.
Silent B in subtle.
Subtle.
And the one that sounds like key, quay.
Key. Still unbelievable. QUAY is kino.
Exactly. It really underscores how English pronunciation isn't always, let's say, logical from the spelling.
Not at all.
But understanding these specific quirks is so valuable.
It really is.
Yeah.
Because ultimately, refining your pronunciation, it isn't about eliminating your accent or sounding like someone else.
Not at all. It's about clarity and confidence.
Yeah. As we've seen, mispronounced words, especially those you might use in more formal or important situations, they can be distracting or even kind of undermine your message.
That's the core idea, really. Getting these high frequency or maybe high impact words right helps ensure your ideas, your personality. That's what shines through, not a little misstep on hierarchy or epitome.
Right.
And the good news is these are mostly pretty easy fixes once you're aware of them. It's about awareness first.
Okay, so beyond just knowing the correct sounds now, how can someone actually, improve, make it stick?
Well, the sources give some great practical tips. One is using tools like IPA transcriptions, which we've mentioned a few times, the International Phonetic Alphabet.
Right, the symbols like for schwa.
Exactly. It helps you see the sounds represented consistently, which English spelling often fails to do.
Seeing the sounds rather than just the letters.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah. Also, practicing with your own voice recordings is really crucial. Say the word, then listen back. Then listen to a native speaker or a reliable dictionary audio and compare what's different.
Self-correction.
And shadowing native speech, trying to mimic exactly what you hear, the rhythm, the intonation, everything that's also incredibly effective.
Shadowing. Like being a vocal mirror.
Precisely. And don't underestimate simply listening more, active listening. The more you hear correct pronunciation used naturally, the more your own speech will start to adapt, often subconsciously.
The ears truly train the tongue then.
They really do.
Yeah.
And finally, maybe the most important habit, make pronunciation an intentional part of vocabulary learning.
Not just an afterthought.
Right. When you encounter a new word, don't just learn its meaning and spelling. Find out how to say it, check a dictionary with audio, look up the IPA if you can.
Okay.
And don't be afraid to make mistakes. Correction is progress. They're just steps towards getting it right.
Excellent actionable tips. This deep dive has definitely shown that English pronunciation is, well, it's a maze sometimes.
It can be.
But it's a maze you can navigate with awareness and practice, especially by focusing on those specific words that tend to trip people up.
And knowing why they're tricky, like the historical loan words or the silent letters or the syllable reduction, it makes them less intimidating somehow, more interesting to correct maybe.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for joining us on this deep dive into some of English's most fascinating pronunciation puzzles.
Oh, it was my pleasure. Keep exploring, keep listening, and keep speaking with growing confidence.
And here's a final thought for you, the listener. At any level of English fluency, refining your pronunciation is a key step toward conveying authority, nuance, and credibility. So which of the words we discussed today surprised you the most? And maybe, how will you make practicing its correct sound an intentional part of your language learning this week? Keep practicing, keep exploring, and keep speaking with confidence.
Okay, but really, think about it for a sec. How often are we all using words that kind of, sabotage what we're trying to say? Like little sneaky words making us sound less confident.
It happens more than you think. And it's wild how these tiny words can really affect how people see us. Yeah. Especially at work, right?
Totally. Which is why we're diving into this article, 11 words you should stop saying immediately. We're not just going to list them, though. We're breaking down why they're bad, and most importantly, giving you swaps so you can sound more powerful.
Think of it like upgrading your communication one word at a time.
First up, the word just. Ugh, I'm so guilty of this. You're writing an email and it's like, I just wanted to follow up, or just a quick question. Why does just make us sound so unsure?
It's subtle, but just makes your request smaller, almost like you're apologizing for it. Imagine waiting to hear back about a project and you're like, I just wanted to follow up on the proposal. What's that say?
Makes me sound hesitant, like I shouldn't even be asking.
Right. But what if you just said, I'm following up on the proposal? It's tiny, but you sound way more confident taking charge.
No more tiptoeing, you own it.
Exactly. And that shift can change how your message lands big time.
Okay, another tricky one. Actually, this feels like a trap almost.
Oh, it can be. Actually, often slips out when we're correcting someone or giving a different view. But imagine someone's like, actually, I think we should go a different way. How's that feel?
Like they're shutting down my idea before even thinking about it?
It can sound condescending, even if they just meant to add to the discussion. Taking out actually makes it more collaborative. Like instead of, actually, I have a question about that, you can say, I'm curious about this part.
More like inviting a chat, not shutting it down.
Perfect. Still saying your thing, but it keeps the flow going, respectfully.
Now, maybe this one feels like almost self-sabotage, wouldn't you say?
It is. You wouldn't use maybe if you were really sure of your idea, so why hedge?
I guess it's like we're scared to commit to our thoughts, you know?
And that hesitation can hurt your credibility, especially at work. Decisiveness often equals competence. Instead of, maybe we should consider this. We should consider this. Hear the difference.
It's like you're leading, not just dipping a toe in.
Right. Showing confidence in your idea, inviting others to follow.
Okay, this one bugs me. Saying sorry when there's no need. Why do we apologize for, like, existing, basically?
It's a thing, isn't it? Do we really need to apologize for asking a question or taking up space or just saying what we think?
No way. And all that apologizing can actually make us seem, I don't know, smaller, less confident.
You're right. And the key is, there are way better ways to say things. Instead of, sorry to bother you, try thanks for your time, or I appreciate your input.
Shows respect without sounding unsure. It's like shifting from apologizing for existing to being grateful for their attention.
Small but powerful, right. Changes how you come across.
All right, another confidence killer, I think. It's everywhere, but it makes what we say weaker.
It's a verbal tick for lots of us. But think about how much stronger it is without it. Like, I think this is the best option versus this is the best option. Huge difference.
You're right. It's a fact now, not just an opinion, maybe.
And sure, sometimes you want to say it's your view, not like universal truth. But even then, there are better ways.
So instead of, I think, you could say, from my analysis, or based on what I've seen.
Exactly. You're owning your view, but it's more, I don't know, sophisticated.
Like leveling up your communication, swapping out the wishy-washy stuff for strong, impactful language.
And that's what this deep dive's about, right? Giving you the tools to communicate clearly, confidently, like you mean it. It's crazy, right? How even little changes to how we talk can make us, like, more confident overall. When we pick words that sound sure, it changes how others see us, but also how we see ourselves.
That's like telling your own brain, hey, I got this.
Totally. And speaking of believing in yourself, let's talk about can't. This one messes with us, keeps us from, doing our best.
Oh, yeah, can't. It's so easy to just say, I can't do this, especially when something's hard.
It's almost automatic, but it's a trap. When we say can't, we're basically stopping ourselves from growing, from changing.
Like we're putting limits on ourselves before even trying.
And honestly, we can do way more than we think we can. So what if instead of I can't, we say something, well, more powerful? Like, I haven't learned this yet, or I'm still figuring it out.
I like that. It's not saying you'll never do it, just that you're on the way there.
Exactly. And that small change can help you stay motivated, keep going when things get tough.
It reminds me of that saying, whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. What we say really does affect what we believe.
So true. So let's pick words that lift us up, both when we talk to ourselves and to others.
Okay, almost done with the list, but a couple more big ones. Let's do but and. I mean, they're not bad words, but how we use them matters, right?
Oh, absolutely. It's all about the situation and what you're trying to say, but often goes after something positive and it kind of ruins it.
It's like giving a compliment and then taking it back. You did great on that presentation, but I think you could have been more engaging. Oof.
Exactly. The but erases the good stuff you just said.
Yeah.
Makes people feel, I don't know, discouraged.
So what's better?
And swap out the but for and it's way more constructive. Like, you did great on that presentation, and I think we can work together to make it even more engaging.
You're not just criticizing, you're helping. It's about fixing things, not just pointing out what's wrong.
And that's such a good attitude to have, right? At work, anywhere.
All right, got to address the big one. Literally, people misuse this all the time. It's almost funny how wrong it gets.
Yeah, it's become this word people use to, like, emphasize stuff, even when it's not actually true.
Yeah.
But using it wrong makes you sound less credible, like you don't know what you're talking about.
I think it shows how important it is to, like, use the right words. When we choose carefully, we say what we mean more clearly, and it has more impact.
Couldn't agree more. It's about, like, respecting how powerful words are and using them to your advantage. So let's all try to use literally, correctly, and really all words, thoughtfully.
Okay, before we go on, gotta mention kind of and sort of again. They seem small, but they weaken what you're trying to say.
Oh, they're so wishy-washy. They make you sound uncertain, like you don't really care. Imagine telling your boss, I'm kind of excited about this new project. Not exactly inspiring, huh?
Sounds like you'd rather be doing something else.
Exactly. So instead of that, let's use words that are, well, stronger, more definite, like I'm intrigued by that, instead of I'm sort of interested. More specific, more interesting.
And it shows you're really paying attention, involved in the conversation.
Right on. Now, sticking with words that fill space but don't add anything, let's talk about like. It's supposed to, like, connect with people, but it can actually make you sound less smart.
It's so ironic. It's like people say like all the time, especially when they're nervous.
But you know what's even better? Just pausing.
Yes. Silence is way more effective than filling the space with, nothing.
Gives your brain a second to think, so you can choose better words.
And it makes you sound more, like, thoughtful, calm, which can be really powerful.
And while we're at it, how about, this one comes up when we're not sure if the other person's getting what we're saying. Like, we need them to agree with us.
It's like we're doubting ourselves, even though we're the ones with the ideas.
But here's the thing.
Yeah.
You know what you're talking about. You can explain it clearly. Yeah. Trust yourself. Let that confidence show.
That's a good point. We don't always need someone to tell us we're right. We can just own it.
Exactly. Now, one last thing about how our language affects how we interact with people. We've talked about specific words, but it's also about the vibe we give off.
Right. Sometimes it's not just the words, but how we say them.
Totally. Like, think about, I have to do this versus I get to do this. It's just a different way of looking at it, but it changes how you feel about it.
It's like turning something you have to do into something you want to do.
It's about feeling like you have control, even when things are tough or boring.
I love that. We really can choose how we see things just by how we talk about them.
And that's kind of the main point of all this. It's not about, like, banning certain words. It's about being aware of what we say, picking words that show what we believe, make us feel confident, and help us really connect with people.
Honestly, I'm kind of fired up now to use all this stuff. It's amazing how just changing a few words can make such a difference in, everything.
It really shows you how powerful language is, right? We don't always realize how much what we say shapes our whole experience.
So for our listeners, what's one thing they can do today to start using all this?
Good question. I think the best way is to just pick one thing, one word from our list that, stood out to you. Maybe you use it too much or you think it's holding you back.
Okay, let's say I pick just. What then?
Try to. Completely stop using it for a week. Mm-hmm. Pay attention to when you want to say it in emails, conversations, even just thinking to yourself.
Like a little challenge? See what happens when you change just one word.
Exactly. I bet you'll be surprised. See how people react when you're more direct, more confident. And notice how it makes you feel. You might find that not saying just makes you sound more sure of yourself. And D actually makes you more confident.
So it's like teaching your brain to use better words by default.
Yeah. And the more you do it, the easier it gets. It's like exercise. The more you use those confident words, the more natural they'll feel.
Makes sense. So it's not about being perfect right away. It's about getting better over time.
Exactly. And hey, you don't have to do this alone. Tell a friend about the episode or a coworker and help each other out. You could even make it fun. Point out when someone slips up.
That's a good idea. It's always easier to stick with something when you have someone to do it with.
And who knows, maybe you'll start this chain reaction of confident communication at work everywhere.
What a great thought. Well, we've definitely given everyone a lot to think about today. It's been, really interesting and inspiring. I feel like I have a whole new understanding of like how to use words to be more confident and clear.
It's been great diving into this with you. And to everyone listening, remember, what we say really matters. So let's choose our words carefully. And until next time, stay curious, stay confident, and keep on learning.
Ever feel like you're just one or two phrases away from sounding like really fluent in English?
Yeah.
Well, we're diving into a podcast script today. It's called Fluent Conversations, and they say they found 15 of those magic words.
Huh, interesting.
Yeah, so it's not about like sounding super smart, right?
Right.
It's about that natural flow you hear like native speakers using like I can explain something perfectly, but it'll still sound like I'm reading it from a textbook.
Oh, for sure.
So to show us how it's done, this script has a conversation between these two friends, Emma and Jake.
Okay.
To show these words in action.
Okay, I like that.
And then it breaks down each word.
Gotcha.
Ready to eavesdrop.
Let's do it.
Okay, so Emma starts by saying, I ran into Sarah yesterday at the mall.
Okay.
Now Jake, he jokes that he pictures her like literally crashing into Sarah. Which I thought was hilarious.
Yeah.
But it's funny because run into is one of those phrases that doesn't translate literally, like it means to meet by chance.
Yeah.
But think about it. Doesn't it sound way more natural than just saying, I met Sarah?
Oh, exactly.
Yeah, it's casual, right?
Yeah.
Off the cuff.
But I think there's like even more to it than just being casual.
Ooh, okay.
So choosing ran into instead of met, it kind of shows like a cultural preference.
Okay.
So in English, we often like to use more indirect language.
Huh.
Especially when we're talking about something that like we weren't expecting, like running into someone.
I never thought about it like that.
Yeah.
So it's not just what you say, it's how you say it.
Exactly.
There's so much packed into these like simple words.
For sure.
Okay, next phrase. Emma asks Jake, could you give me a hand with these boxes?
Okay.
Of course, Jake knows she just needs help, right?
Right.
Not a literal hand.
Uh-huh.
It's another example of this like indirect language thing.
Yeah, I was going to say definitely.
So give me a hand. It makes it sound nicer, right?
Yeah.
It's more like we're working together, not me demanding something.
Exactly.
It assumes that like we're already on good terms.
Right.
Interesting. So even when we're asking for help, English speakers, we like to beat around the bush a little bit.
Well, it's not really like avoiding the question. It's more about,
Okay.
being polite.
Okay.
And not sounding too direct or demanding.
Makes sense. Okay, so then Emma says, we need to wrap up this meeting soon.
Okay.
So wrap up, I feel like this is one of those words that you can use all the time.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
In so many situations.
It works for meetings, projects.
Yeah.
Even just conversations.
Exactly. And what I think is so cool about this is it paints a picture in your mind, right?
Right.
It's like you're really tying everything up together. Yeah, I can almost see it.
Yeah, and I think because it's so visual like that, it makes it more memorable.
Oh, totally.
Yeah, and easier to use.
Okay, next one. Emma says, I'll keep an eye on your bag while you get coffee.
Okay.
So it's more than just watching it, right?
Right.
There's like responsibility there.
Yeah.
Like saying, I got you covered.
Yeah, and I think that's why it's so effective. It's like there's that deeper meaning,
Yeah.
It's not just the words, but it shows the trust between Emma and Jake.
Okay, up next, Emma says, hang on, I need to grab my jacket before we go.
Okay.
It's so simple, right?
Yeah.
But like so important for every day.
Oh, yeah. I use it all the time.
Who hasn't yelled that running out the door?
Yeah.
But like it's friendly, right?
Yeah.
It's not like an order. It's just like, hey, wait a sec.
It's just a quick little, hold on.
Yeah.
And it also, like, it implies it'll be quick,
Yeah.
You're not asking for a lot.
Okay, now this next one, I feel this one in my soul.
Okay.
Emma says, I messed up my presentation, but my teacher was really understanding.
Oh, yeah?
Mess up. It's interesting, right?
Yeah.
Because it's like, it doesn't sound as bad as like fail. Fail sounds so final.
Totally.
This is more like you tripped up, but you can recover.
Yeah. And it also shows that she's, like, taking ownership,
Yeah.
But without beating herself up too much about it.
Which is good life advice in general, I think.
Right.
Okay, now Emma asks, Jake, can you drop me off at the bus station? Now this one's interesting.
Oh, how so?
Because it like kind of shows how we have certain social rules just with language.
Oh, boy.
Like you wouldn't just ask a stranger to drop you off.
Right.
You're kind of doing them a favor.
Yep.
It assumes you already go in that way and you're cool with going a little out of your way.
Yeah, exactly.
It's way more natural than saying like, can you please transport me to the bus station using your vehicle?
Oh, my God, yeah.
Okay, what does Emma say next? So Emma says, I'll check it out and let you know.
Okay.
It's like the perfect thing to say if you want to show you're interested.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
It's way better than just saying like, okay,
Right.
you're actually going to like do something.
Yeah, exactly. Even though it's simple,
Yeah.
it showed you're like thinking ahead.
Yeah.
Which is good.
Okay, then Emma mentions she has to come up with a good idea for our project.
Oh, yeah. This is something we can all relate to.
Ugh, tell me about it.
Whether it's for work or just like trying to figure out what to make for dinner.
Seriously.
It's that mental struggle. Like you're trying to make something new.
Okay, next up, Emma gets excited and says, I'm looking forward to our trip next week.
Okay.
This one is just like pure excitement, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Anyway.
And it's cool how she brings Jake into it, by saying our trip.
Yeah.
It makes them like closer because they're both excited.
Okay, but then reality hits. Emma says, I need to figure out how to fix this problem.
Yeah.
We've all been there.
Oh, for sure.
This just shows, like, you're not going to give up.
Right.
You're going to find a way to fix
Exactly.
it. So we already saw her mess up earlier, and now she says, I was late, but I made up for it by bringing coffee.
Oh, nice.
Smooth, right?
Right. Yeah.
Like, you messed up, but you're going to make it right.
Yeah, it's like a little apology, but without actually saying sorry.
I like that.
It's like, you messed up, but you're trying to fix it.
Okay, then things get a little dramatic. Jake says he passed out from exhaustion.
Okay.
So it means to faint, right?
Yeah.
But by adding, like, from exhaustion,
right.
You really know how tired he must have been. Like, he couldn't stay awake.
Yeah.
Okay, we're getting to the end of their conversation, and Jake says she showed up late to the party.
Okay.
So he's just saying what happened, right?
Right.
But showed up, it kind of sounds like he's, like, judging her a little.
Yeah, like it was her choice to be late.
Yeah.
Not something, that she couldn't control.
Interesting.
Yeah. So even a little word like that, it can show what you really think.
Okay, finally, Jake says, we had to put off our meeting until next week. I feel like this is so much nicer than saying we canceled.
Oh,
it's not gone forever.
Right. It's just waiting for a better time.
Yeah, like we're still committed.
Exactly.
So that's all 15 words in action.
That was cool.
And remember, the podcast, we're deep diving into fluent conversations. They give you a challenge.
Oh, fun.
So they have 3 sentences.
Okay.
And you have to figure out which word fits best.
Okay.
First one, I link my keys, and now I can't find them anywhere.
Oh, I hate when that happens.
So relatable.
The perfect word is messed up.
Okay.
Because it's your fault, and you're like frustrated because of it.
Second challenge, I'll blank your dog while you're on vacation.
Okay.
So this one is all about taking care of something, right?
Right.
So the answer is keep an eye on. Much better than saying, like, I will supervise your canine.
Oh, my God. Yeah. Way too formal.
Okay. Last challenge, let's blank dinner until next week.
Okay.
So we're just moving it to later.
Yeah.
The best word here is put off. It's like hitting the pause button.
Exactly.
I love how, like, effortlessly those words fit into the sentences.
Yeah, it's like they were made for them.
And that's why it's so important to master these, like, everyday words.
Right.
Because they make you sound so much more fluent.
Exactly. It's like building blocks for your conversation.
So we learned a lot, huh?
Yeah, I think so.
Just from those 15 words.
Right. And just like hearing them in a normal conversation.
It's kind of crazy how much we can pick up just from that.
It really shows you that like fluency isn't about, knowing every word in the dictionary.
Right.
It's more about like how you use those words to connect with someone.
To really get your point across.
Exactly. Yeah.
So what does this all mean for like our listener?
Well, it means they can like totally improve their fluency.
Okay.
Just by like looking at the phrases they use every day.
Yeah. Instead of just saying stuff without thinking.
Right. Like actually think about why you're using that word.
Okay. Yeah.
And like how it makes the other person feel.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
And if you can do that, you'll sound so much more natural.
And confidence. So, okay, we get it. We got to use the right words. But like, how do we actually do that?
Good question. Well, I have a challenge, kind of like in the Fluent Conversations podcast.
Okay.
Think about some other simple phrases that you could start using today.
That would make us sound like more natural.
Exactly.
Ooh, that's a tough one.
Yeah, but I think like one thing you could do is like pay attention when you're watching a movie.
Okay.
Or a TV show and see how they say things.
Oh, yeah, steal their lines, basically. And then like actually use them when you're talking to someone.
Right. Don't be scared to try it out.
Yeah. And see what works, see what feels good.
Exactly. It's like a little experiment.
I love that.
We could even like all share what we find.
Oh, yeah, that would be cool.
Everyone can like learn from each other.
Because at the end of the day, language is about connecting with people, right?
Yeah, it's about like building relationships, sharing what you think.
Exactly.
And the better you are at English, the easier that is to do.
So true. So keep exploring, keep experimenting, and keep those conversations flowing.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Until next time, happy language adventures. All right, buckle up, because today we're diving deep into something you specifically requested.
Oh, yeah.
Boosting your vocabulary.
Yes.
For more fluent and confident English.
It's going to be good.
Now, before you panic, we're not expecting you to memorize the entire dictionary.
Not at all. This is about those key words, the kind that can make a real difference in how you express yourself, especially in those situations you mentioned where you want to feel more confident and articulate.
Exactly. And luckily, the source material we're using is super organized with 60 powerful words.
Wow.
Grouped into 6 helpful categories.
I like it.
Though it is kind of funny that the source itself is structured like a podcast episode.
Very meta.
Yeah.
But we'll skip those instructions and jump right into the good stuff.
Okay, let's unpack this first category, expressing opinions.
Okay.
The first word that jumps out at me is concur.
Ooh.
It just sounds so much more decisive than a plain old, I agree, you know?
Absolutely. Concur implies you've actually considered the information and come to a thoughtful agreement, which could be especially powerful, say, in a professional setting.
Right.
Where you want to project competence.
Oh, that's a good point. It's not just about using fancy words. It's about choosing the right word to convey the specific message you want.
Exactly. And speaking of conveying messages, the next word, imply, reminds me of something you mentioned. You said you sometimes struggle to give feedback delicately.
Oh, yeah.
Well, imply could be your secret weapon there.
Ooh, tell me more.
So instead of directly criticizing, you can imply your suggestion.
Okay.
For example, instead of saying that report was too long,
Right.
You could say, I wonder if the report's key points could be summarized more concisely.
Oh.
You're implying that it needs to be shorter without directly saying it.
That's brilliant. It softens the criticism while still getting the message across. I can definitely see myself using that.
See, it's all about understanding the nuances of these words and how they can be applied in real-life situations.
Okay, I'm starting to get really excited about this. What else do we have in this category?
Well, we have refute, which is perfect for dismantling a flimsy argument. Politely, of course.
Right.
Remember those meetings where someone proposes an idea that just doesn't hold up?
Oh, I know those meetings all too well.
Refute allows you to disagree respectfully while presenting evidence or logic to back up your stance.
So instead of just saying, I disagree, I could say something like, I understand your point, but I'd like to refute it by presenting these statistics.
Exactly. It shows that you've considered the other perspective, but have a well-reasoned counter-argument. Very effective.
Okay, I'm loving these words already. Now, what about this pair, imply and infer? I always get those mixed up.
Ah, yes, a classic linguistic conundrum. Remember that example we just discussed about implying feedback?
Yes.
Well, if someone inferred from your subtle suggestion that the report needed to be shorter,
right,
that would be on them drawing a conclusion from what you implied.
Okay, so imply is on the speaker side and infer is on the listener side. Got it.
You got it. Now, there's another word of this category that I think would be particularly useful for you.
Okay.
Assert. You mentioned wanting to be more vocal in meetings, right?
Oh, yes. Sometimes I feel like I fade into the background a bit.
Well, assert is your power word. Imagine yourself saying, I want to assert that we need to prioritize user experience in this project.
Wow. I can already feel the difference. Assert just has this air of confidence and conviction.
Exactly. It shows that you're not afraid to speak your mind and that you believe in the value of your contributions.
This is fantastic. I'm already feeling more empowered to express my opinions effectively. Okay, what's next on our vocabulary adventure?
Let's move on to personal qualities. This category is all about the words that describe who we are at our core.
Ooh, this sounds intriguing and a little bit introspective, perhaps.
Absolutely. For example, we have meticulous.
Okay.
Which describes someone who pays incredible attention to detail.
Right.
Now, thinking back to your work, I know you take pride in delivering high-quality results. Would you say meticulous is a word that resonates with you?
Definitely. I'm always striving for perfection, whether it's editing a script or organizing an event.
So owning that word and using it to describe your work ethic could really enhance how others perceive your strengths. You could say something like, I'm meticulous in my approach to project management, ensuring that every detail is accounted for.
I love that. It's not just about sounding smart, it's about accurately representing my skills and values.
Precisely. And speaking of values, the next word, resilient, is one that I think we can all relate to.
Oh, absolutely. Life throws curveballs, and it's all about how we bounce back.
Exactly. Resilience isn't about avoiding challenges.
Right.
It's about having the inner strength to overcome them. And remember that setback you told me about how you handled that difficult client situation?
Oh, yeah.
That's a perfect example of your resilience in action.
You know, you're right. I never thought of it that way, but I did manage to navigate that situation effectively and learn from the experience.
Exactly. So when you encounter future challenges, remember that experience and the strength you demonstrated. That's what resilience is all about.
Wow, this is really powerful stuff. I'm starting to see how These words aren't just about expanding my vocabulary, they're about reframing my thinking and recognizing my own strengths.
That's exactly the point. Now, before we move on, I noticed that candid appears in two categories:
Oh.
personal qualities and sophisticated conversations. I wonder what that tells us about the importance of honesty.
That's interesting. Maybe being candid is more valuable than we sometimes realize, both in our personal lives and in those more complex discussions.
It's definitely something to ponder. So before we delve into those sophisticated conversations, let's take a moment to reflect. If you had to choose 3 words from this personal qualities list to describe yourself, which ones would you pick and why?
Ooh, that's a great question. I think I would choose meticulous, resilient, and maybe insightful. I feel like those words really capture my approach to work and life in general.
Those are excellent choices. And they highlight the power of owning those qualities and using them to your advantage.
All right, I'm ready to dive into the next category, words for making conversations sound more sophisticated. But I have to admit, I sometimes feel a little silly using big words in casual conversations. Like, will people think I'm trying too hard?
I understand that concern, but think of it this way. These words aren't about showing off.
Right.
They're about expressing yourself more precisely and vividly. It's like having a wider range of colors to paint with.
Okay, that's a helpful analogy. So it's less about sounding smart and more about using the right tool for the job.
Exactly. For instance, the word ubiquitous. Yes, it sounds a bit academic, but it's also incredibly useful for describing something that's everywhere. Like, remember how we were talking about that new social media app everyone's using?
Oh, yeah? The one that's suddenly taken over all my feeds?
Instead of just saying it's everywhere, you could say, that app has become ubiquitous. It just adds a touch of sophistication and precision.
You're right. It elevates the language a bit without sounding pretentious. Okay, I'm starting to see the appeal. What other sophisticated words do we have here?
Well, there's ephemeral,
Okay.
which describes something fleeting or short-lived.
Right.
Now, think about that feeling you describe when a really great book ends, or when you finish a project you've poured your heart into.
Oh, I know that feeling well. A mix of satisfaction and a little bit of sadness that it's over.
Exactly. It's a bittersweet feeling, and ephemeral captures that perfectly. You could say the joy of finishing that project was wonderful, but also somewhat ephemeral.
That's beautiful. I'll definitely be adding ephemeral to my vocabulary arsenal.
And, it doesn't have to be reserved for deep philosophical discussions. You could even use it to describe something as simple as a beautiful sunset.
Oh, that's true. The sunset's colors were vibrant yet ephemeral. I love it.
See, these words can add depth and richness to any conversation, even everyday ones. Now, what about notorious? It's a fun one.
Ooh, yes. It's like that restaurant is notorious for its terrible service, or that politician is notorious for flip-flopping on issues.
Exactly. It conveys a sense of infamy or bad reputation, adding a little bit of spice to your storytelling.
Okay, I'm ready to move on to the next category, words for work and professional settings. I'll be honest, I initially thought I could skip this section since I'm not in a super corporate environment.
That's a common misconception. While these words might be frequently used in offices, understanding them can be valuable in any setting where you're collaborating with others.
You know, you're right. For example, delegation. It's not just about bosses assigning tasks. It's about effectively distributing responsibilities in any group project, even planning a volunteer event or a community initiative.
Exactly. Understanding delegation can help you be a more effective leader even in informal settings. And then there's facilitate, which is such a useful word for anyone who wants to help things run smoothly.
Oh, I love facilitate. It's like I want to facilitate a brainstorming session where everyone feels comfortable sharing their ideas.
Exactly. It implies a sense of guidance and support, creating an environment where everyone can contribute effectively. Now, I know you mentioned sometimes feeling overwhelmed by group projects. Delegation and facilitate are perfect examples of words that can empower you to take charge and guide those projects towards success.
Wow, that's a really empowering perspective. I'm already feeling more confident about handling those collaborative situations.
And even a word like synergy, which might make you roll your eyes a bit.
Oh, definitely. It's such a buzzword.
It is. But putting aside the corporate jargon, the underlying concept is actually quite valuable. Synergy is about recognizing that the combined effort of a group can be greater than the sum of its individual parts.
Okay, when you put it that way, it does make sense. It's about the power of collaboration and how different skills and perspectives can come together to create something truly amazing.
Exactly. And that's a powerful concept to understand regardless of your work environment.
All right, I'm starting to see the value in these work and professional settings words. They might not be the most glamorous, but they are incredibly useful for clear communication and effective teamwork.
And speaking of clear communication, let's move on to a category that's all about expressing ourselves authentically, emotions and reactions. This is where things get really interesting.
Oh, I love this category. These words are so much more nuanced and evocative than just saying, happy or sad.
Exactly. It's like having a whole spectrum of colors to describe the complexities of human emotion. For example, exasperated. It perfectly captures that feeling of utter frustration and annoyance, like when you're dealing with a never-ending queue or a computer that just won't cooperate.
Oh, tell me about it. I felt that way just this morning when I was trying to book a flight online and the website kept crashing.
I can imagine it's much more specific and vivid than just saying annoyed, right?
Absolutely. And then there's elated. It's not just happy. It's a feeling of pure joy and exhilaration, like when you achieve a long-awaited goal or receive wonderful news.
Exactly. And what's interesting is that understanding a wider range of emotion words can actually help us to better regulate our own emotions.
Oh, how so?
When we can accurately label our emotions, we can start to understand the triggers that cause them and develop strategies for coping with challenging situations.
That's so true. If I can pinpoint exactly what I'm feeling, it's easier to figure out how to address the issue or shift my mindset. It's like having a roadmap for my own emotional well-being.
Exactly. It's about becoming more emotionally intelligent, both in understanding ourselves and in empathizing with others.
Okay, this is fascinating. So it's not just about expressing ourselves, it's about understanding the emotions behind the words.
Precisely. And speaking of understanding, how are you feeling right now?
Let me see. I think I'm feeling a mix of intrigued and inspired. This deep dive is really opening my eyes to the power of language.
That's wonderful to hear, and it's a perfect example of how expanding our vocabulary can enhance our self-awareness and emotional intelligence.
All right, I'm excited to explore our final category, words for everyday conversations. These are the words we use all the time, but maybe we could be using them more effectively.
Exactly. It's about refining our everyday language to express ourselves with greater clarity and impact. For example, the word tedious. We all have those tasks or activities that we find boring and repetitive.
Oh, absolutely. Filing paperwork, cleaning the bathroom, waiting on hold. The list goes on.
Exactly. But instead of just saying, ugh, this is so boring, you could say, this paperwork is incredibly tedious. It just adds a touch of eloquence to your complaint.
Huh, I love that. It's like elevating the art of complaining.
Precisely. And then we have substantial.
Okay.
Which is a word you can use to describe something significant or meaningful.
Right.
It could be a substantial meal, a substantial accomplishment, or even a substantial improvement in your communication skills.
Ooh, I like that. It adds a sense of weight and importance.
Exactly. And finally, we have inevitable, which is a great word to use when discussing trends or events that seem certain to happen.
Like, it's inevitable that technology will continue to advance at a rapid pace, or it's inevitable that this cake will be devoured in minutes.
Huh. Both excellent examples.
You know, I'm really impressed with how versatile these everyday conversations words are. They might seem simple at first glance, but they can add so much depth and nuance to our everyday language.
Exactly. It's all about choosing the right words to convey our thoughts and feelings with precision and clarity. And remember, this deep dive is just the beginning of your vocabulary journey.
That's right. It's about continually exploring language, experimenting with new words, and finding those hidden gems that allow us to express ourselves more authentically and effectively.
And who knows, maybe one day you'll be the one casually dropping ephemeral and ubiquitous into everyday conversations, leaving everyone in awe of your eloquence.
Huh, I wouldn't mind that, but seriously, this has been such an eye-opening experience. I'm feeling inspired to pay more attention to my language and to embrace the power of words.
That's fantastic. And remember, the journey of language exploration is a lifelong adventure. There's always something new to learn, and the possibilities for expression are endless.
You know, as we wrap up this deep dive into powerful vocabulary,
Right.
I think it's important to remember that this isn't just about sounding smarter.
Absolutely, it's about so much more than that.
Right. We've talked about how the right words can help you be more persuasive in meetings,
Yes.
give feedback more delicately, even navigate those tricky group projects you mentioned.
Precisely. A richer vocabulary is like having a sharper set of tools. It allows you to express yourself with more nuance and precision, whether you're writing an email,
Right.
giving a presentation,
Right.
or just having a casual conversation.
It's like the difference between using a bull knife and a razor-sharp one.
Oh,
You can still get the job done with the dull knife, but the sharp one makes it so much easier and the results are so much cleaner.
I love that analogy. And just like with any skill building, a strong vocabulary takes practice.
Totally. But it's not about memorizing a bunch of fancy words and then awkwardly shoehorning them into every sentence.
Definitely not. It's about understanding the subtle shades of meaning, the contexts in which certain words are most effective,
Right.
and then using them in a way that feels natural and authentic to you.
So it's not just about the quantity of words we know, it's about the quality of our understanding and how we use them.
Exactly. And that's where the real power lies.
So, dear listener, as we wrap out this deep dive,
Okay.
we want to encourage you to embrace the journey of language exploration.
Don't be afraid to pick up a dictionary, browse through a thesaurus, or even just pay close attention to the language used in books, articles, and conversations.
And remember, even incorporating just one new word from this deep dive into your regular vocabulary can make a noticeable difference.
It's like adding a new color to your palette, a new spice to your cooking, a new tool to your toolbox.
And who knows, maybe you'll inspire someone else to start paying more attention to their own language.
Exactly. And that's how we create a ripple effect, raising the level of communication and understanding for everyone.
So with that in mind, we encourage you to go out there and experiment with your newfound vocabulary. Don't be afraid to make mistakes.
Yes.
To play with words and to discover the endless possibilities of expression.
Because the power of language is within your grasp, and the journey of learning is one that never truly ends.
That wraps up our deep dive into powerful English vocabulary. We hope you've enjoyed this exploration and that you'll continue to discover the magic and the power of word.
Until next time, happy communicating.
All right, so today we're going to be looking at something that you might think you've already mastered.
Oh.
Formal versus informal English.
Yeah.
You're probably already pretty good at it, right?
Most people are, yeah.
But we are going to go beyond just good.
Okay.
We're going for masterful.
I like it.
We're unlocking a secret code today.
A secret code.
To help you tailor your communication.
Okay.
To make the maximum impact possible.
Right.
Whether you're trying to, be super credible in the boardroom or just bond better with your friends.
Yeah, and that's the key, isn't it? It's not just about knowing the rules, but it's about understanding the why behind them.
The why.
Yeah, like why does a certain word choice make us feel a certain way? How do these subtle shifts in language, really impact our perceptions and interactions?
Yeah, and we're basing this deep dive on a podcast called Fluent Conversations.
Okay.
And one of the things that really surprised me was how easy it is to sabotage yourself by using the wrong level of formality.
Oh, interesting.
Like, imagine you're at a networking event.
Okay.
And you're trying to, project this air of confidence and professionalism. But instead of saying something like, "Excuse me, would you mind if I joined your conversation?"
Whoa.
You blurt out, "Yo, can I hang with you guys?"
Oof, yeah, that's cringeworthy.
Right.
Yeah, it really highlights how these small choices we make can have a big impact on how we're perceived.
Totally.
It's not just about grammar. It's about social intelligence.
Ooh, I like that.
Understanding the unspoken rules of communication.
Yeah.
And using them to your advantage.
Yeah, the podcast had this great example that really stuck with me.
Okay.
They compared the phrases, "I'm afraid I must decline your offer," to "Sorry, but I'll have to say no."
Yeah.
And it just made me realize that even when the message is the same, the feeling is totally different.
Absolutely. The first one feels very stiff and distant, almost like you're putting up a wall.
Right.
The second one is much warmer, more human.
Yeah.
Even though it's still saying no.
Yeah.
It shows you can be direct, but you don't have to be harsh.
So how do we break down this code of formality?
Well,
Fluent Conversations identified 3 key elements.
Okay.
And the first one is vocabulary.
Vocabulary, I think about it this way. Every word carries a certain weight, a certain formality level.
Okay.
For instance, require versus need, inquire versus ask.
Yeah.
Even something simple like assist versus help.
Oh, interesting.
These little swaps can instantly elevate your language or make it more approachable.
Okay, so it's not just about using fancy words.
Right.
It's about understanding which words fit the situation.
Exactly. It's about matching your vocabulary to the context and to the person that you're speaking with. And it goes beyond individual words.
Okay.
Sentence structure plays a big role as well.
Sentence structure?
Yeah, the formal language tends towards longer, more complex sentences.
Okay.
Often using the passive voice.
Like the report was submitted by the deadline.
Yes.
Instead of I sent in the report on time.
That's a great example. The first one feels detached and objective, right?
Yeah.
More appropriate maybe for formal reports or academic writing.
Yeah.
Informal language, though, it embraces contractions and phrasal verbs. It has a more relaxed conversational flow.
Yeah.
It's about creating that sense of connection, immediacy.
And of course, we can't forget about punctuation and greetings.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, obviously, "Dear Mr. Johnson" versus "Hey, Alex" is a pretty clear distinction.
Right.
But what about the subtle stuff?
That's where it gets interesting. Even something as simple as how you sign off an email.
Oh.
Sincerely versus best.
Yeah.
Can convey a lot about your relationship with the recipient.
Right.
And the tone of the message. It's like the finishing touch that sets the seal on the whole communication.
So how do we put all this knowledge into practice?
Well,
it's one thing to understand the theory, but how do we actually use it in different situations?
Right. Well, that's where context comes in. Fluent Conversations did a good job at breaking it down, by looking at specific situations. Like emails or meetings or even casual chats.
That's super helpful. So let's start with emails. I feel like those can be tricky.
Oh, yeah.
Because you want to sound professional, but not like stiff,
Where emails often straddle that line between formal and informal.
Right.
You're not writing a legal document.
Yeah.
But you're also not texting your best friend.
Yeah.
So the podcast really emphasized, polite greetings, maintaining a professional tone throughout, and avoiding slang or like overly casual abbreviations.
So no, hey dude, what's up? It's my boss.
Probably a good idea to avoid that, yeah.
Okay, good rule of thumb. What about meetings and presentations? Those feel like they're more on the formal end of the spectrum.
They often are, especially in professional settings.
Yeah.
The podcast really highlighted the importance of using transitional words and phrases to guide the listener through your ideas. Things like, furthermore, in addition, on the other hand, these little words can make your presentation sound much more structured and polished.
It's like you're building a case, almost.
Exactly.
Leading them to your conclusion.
Right. And, those polite phrases we talked about earlier, like, could we possibly discuss, or I'd like to propose, those become even more important in these kind of settings.
Right.
Shows respect for everybody's time and input.
Okay, so we've covered emails and meetings. What about more casual interactions?
Sure.
Like friendly chats or texts?
Yeah, that's where you can loosen up a bit, Contractions, phrasal verbs, even emojis are all fair game.
Right.
Depending on your relationship with the person.
But how do you make sure that you're not crossing the line?
Oh, yeah.
Like, I once accidentally called my professor dude in an email.
Oh, no.
Oh, I wanted to die.
We've all been there.
Yeah.
I think the key is just being really mindful of your audience and the overall context. Yeah. It's like choosing the right outfit, right?
Okay.
You wouldn't wear a ball gown to a backyard barbecue.
Right.
And you wouldn't show up to a job interview in sweatpants.
That's a great analogy.
So it's all about matching your communication style to the situation.
But Fluent Conversations also warn about some common pitfalls.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
That we can fall into even when we're trying to be careful.
Right. One of the biggest ones is overusing fancy words.
Oh, yeah.
It's tempting to try and sound impressive.
Oh, totally.
But sometimes a simple word is way more effective than a complex one.
Right.
Clarity should always be the goal.
It's like, don't use a $5 word when a 50-cent word will do.
Exactly. Another common pitfall is mixing formal and informal language at the wrong time.
Right.
It creates this jarring effect, like hearing a classical pianist suddenly break into a rap song.
Oh, I'm cringing just thinking about it.
And, the podcast also mentioned cultural differences.
Oh, right.
Which is something I hadn't really considered before.
Yeah.
That's a crucial element,
Yeah.
What's considered polite and respectful in one culture could be seen as overly formal.
Right.
Or even rude in another.
Wow.
For example, in some cultures, it's totally normal to address people by their first names, even in a professional setting.
Yeah.
But in other cultures, using titles and last names is essential even when you know the person well.
So it's not just about knowing the rules of English.
Right.
It's about understanding the cultural context as well.
It does. It adds a whole other layer of complexity.
Totally.
But it also makes communication so much more interesting.
Right.
It's about bridging those cultural gaps and finding ways to connect authentically.
I like that perspective. So we've talked about the pitfalls. What are some strategies for avoiding them? Is it just practice? Practice.
Absolutely. Practice is key.
Okay.
Fluent Conversations had some great suggestions, like rereading emails before you send them.
Okay.
Getting feedback from, like, a trusted colleague or friend.
Yeah.
And even role-playing different situations.
Okay.
To get comfortable with both formal and informal styles.
I remember they also suggested that role-play exercise.
Oh, yeah?
Where you write a formal email and then an informal text message about the same topic.
Yes.
Have you tried that one yet?
Oh, yeah.
It was
how'd it go?
It was challenging, but it was really eye-opening.
Interesting. I'd love to hear about it.
Yeah, so I decided to use the scenario of asking for a deadline extension.
Okay, classic.
Yeah, right. So for the formal email to my professor, I channeled everything we talked about.
Okay, let me guess. Polite greetings, clear explanation, respectful tone.
Exactly, yeah. It felt like I was stepping into a different persona.
It's interesting how language can do that, right? Like, we can embody different roles just by changing the way we speak.
Yeah, and then writing the informal text to a friend about running late because of that same deadline. It was like switching from a waltz to a hip-hop dance.
I bet what stood out to you the most, writing in those two contrasting styles.
It made me realize just how much we adjust our language without even thinking about it. you know?
Yeah, it's subconscious.
Right, but being conscious of those choices gives you this whole new level of control.
Yeah, that awareness is what makes a good communicator a great communicator.
Yeah, Fluent Conversations also mentioned how formal versus informal language has evolved over time.
Oh, that's a fascinating topic.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
It's crazy how language is like this living, breathing thing.
It is.
Constantly changing.
Yeah, the Nutcast talked about how centuries ago, formal language was so much more elaborate and ornate.
Right. Makes you appreciate how simple things are now.
Well, simpler, maybe, but also more nuanced. You know?
That's true.
Think about all the changes we've seen with technology and the internet and mass media.
Right.
They've all had such a profound impact on the way we communicate.
Yeah.
Like the lines between formal and informal are constantly being blurred.
Totally. Like emojis and internet slang and abbreviations have become a part of everyday language.
It really makes you wonder what future historians will make of it all.
I know. It's kind of wild to think about.
Yeah, it shows how language is this reflection of our culture and values. What we see as acceptable now might have been unthinkable a few decades ago.
So how do we make sure we're communicating effectively in this constantly evolving landscape?
That's the question, isn't it? It feels like the rules are always changing.
Right.
I don't know if the rules are changing, but I think they're definitely expanding.
Okay. Yeah.
The key is to just stay curious and adaptable.
Okay.
You know, pay attention to how language is used in different situations.
Yeah.
Whether it's a news article or a social media post. Notice the nuances, the subtle shifts in tone and vocabulary.
So it's like we're all lifelong students of language.
We are.
Always observing and learning.
Exactly. And, you know, Fluent Conversations reminded us that it's not about being right or wrong.
Right.
It's about using language as a tool to connect with others.
That's a good point. This whole deep dive has just been a great reminder that even something as familiar as language can still have hidden depths and complexities. And by being more mindful of our choices, we can all become more effective communicators. We can build stronger relationships and just navigate the world with more confidence, you know?
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Well, I think that's a great place to wrap up.
I think so too.
So listeners, remember, language is power.
It is.
Wield it wisely and watch your world expand. All right, so are you ready to unlock the secrets to speaking English fluently?
I think everyone's ready for that.
I know I am. We're going to be diving deep into this guide, 9 secrets to speaking English fluently and easily.
Sounds good to me.
And hopefully we'll be able to break down the techniques that'll help anyone reach fluency.
Yeah, because who doesn't want a cheat sheet for fluency?
Exactly. Cut through the clutter, get right to what works.
And what I think is really cool about this guide is that it's not your typical textbook stuff.
Oh, really?
It's like it dives into the mindset.
Oh, wow.
And the strategies you need to actually make it happen in the real world.
So it's not all about just memorizing verb conjugations and all that.
Exactly.
Okay, cool. So let's jump right into the first secret then, embracing the learner's mindset.
Okay.
Sounds pretty basic, but what does that actually look like, you know, in practice?
It's all about seeing those stumbles, those fumbles, those inevitable mistakes as like opportunities to learn.
Okay.
You know, instead of like beating yourself up over them.
Yeah.
Like imagine you're learning to play a really complex piece of music on the piano.
Oh, gosh.
You wouldn't expect to just nail it on the first try, would you?
Definitely not. I'd be hitting all the wrong notes, probably.
Exactly. And each one of those like mistakes, they're giving you valuable feedback. They're telling you, okay, adjust your technique here, and eventually you'll get to that flawless performance.
I like that analogy a lot.
And language is so similar.
Oh, yeah.
Like every time you kind of mess up, you're actually gaining these insights into how this amazing language works.
That's true.
You know, I remember when I was learning Italian,
oh, yeah.
I kept using the wrong preposition for this one particular sentence structure.
Oh, gosh.
And it was so frustrating. But instead of giving up, I decided to really analyze it, like what was going on there. And you know what? I ended up discovering this subtle little nuance that I had completely missed before.
Oh, wow.
And my understanding of prepositions just like skyrocketed after that.
That's a perfect example of how just reframing those mistakes can lead to these breakthroughs.
Totally.
But like, how can someone listening actually cultivate this learner's mindset? Like, what are some practical things they can do?
Well, this guide actually gives a couple of really good practical methods.
Okay.
One is to start a progress journal.
Okay.
It doesn't have to be anything fancy. Just take a few minutes each day to jot down what you've learned, maybe what went well, what you struggled with.
Okay.
Because then when you look back and you see how far you've come, it's incredibly motivating.
I love that. I love the progress journal idea because it's like a tangible record of your growth.
Yes.
Especially on those days where you feel like, ugh, I'm not getting anywhere. You can look back and be like, wow, I've come a long way.
It's so powerful.
Yeah. What about like rewarding yourself for those wins, even the small ones? Does that tie into this?
Oh, absolutely. Celebrating those milestones helps reinforce positive learning habits.
Okay.
And it keeps you motivated, whether it's a small treat or watching an episode of your favorite show.
Yeah.
Even just taking a break to do something you enjoy. Those little rewards, they go a long way.
I like that. All right, so let's move on to secret number 2. Speaking as often as possible, even if you're alone.
Okay.
You know, I have to admit, I've definitely caught myself, like, having conversations with my plants in English before.
I think we've all been there.
But, I mean, is that actually helpful?
It might sound a little silly,
Yeah.
but there's actually some solid science behind this.
Okay.
Because every time you speak, you're engaging those muscles that are involved in producing those specific sounds.
I've never thought about that.
It's like working out at the gym, but for your vocal cords and your brain.
Oh, wow.
I remember when I was getting ready for a big presentation in Spanish.
Okay.
And I was pretty nervous about it, so I started practicing out loud, even when I was alone in my apartment.
You were just talking to yourself.
Yeah, I would like pace around talking to this imaginary audience, asking them questions, responding to their reactions.
Oh, wow.
It felt a little awkward at first.
Yeah.
But the more I did it, the more natural it became.
So it's all about building that muscle memory.
Yes.
Getting your brain and your mouth used to forming those sounds.
Exactly.
Cool. And the best part is you can do it anytime, anywhere.
All right.
You know, narrate your day, have these imaginary debates, sing along to English songs. Just get those words flowing.
Exactly. Just find those opportunities to speak and let it flow.
Speaking of flow, that leads us perfectly into the next secret.
Okay.
Which emphasizes the power of listening. Why is listening so important for fluency?
Well, think about how we all learned our first language. We spent months, maybe even years, just absorbing those sounds and patterns before we ever even uttered a word.
Yeah.
So listening, it's really the foundation upon which we build our understanding of any language.
You know what? I've actually noticed that when I spend a lot of time watching movies or TV shows in English, my pronunciation and intonation actually improve.
Interesting.
It's like my brain's subconsciously picking up on those nuances.
Yeah, it makes total sense.
Yeah.
It's like you're immersing yourself in the language.
Right.
Even if it's just virtually.
Yeah.
And this guide, it actually has some great suggestions for maximizing your listening practice.
I'm assuming podcasts are one of them.
Oh, podcasts are amazing.
I love podcasts.
And there's honestly something for everyone.
Yeah.
Like, if you're interested in news analysis, you could try The Daily from the New York Times.
Okay.
Or if you want, like, science and storytelling, there's this really cool podcast called Radio Lab.
I've heard of that one, yeah.
And if you're looking for something a little more humorous, I highly recommend My Dad Wrote a Porno.
That sounds hilarious.
So funny.
Okay, I'll have to check that one out. And of course, we can't forget about music.
Of course not.
Such a great way to not only pick up new vocabulary and idioms and slang, but also just to kind of get that pronunciation and intonation in a fun way.
Right. Because it's way more fun than just doing drills.
Yes, exactly.
Singing along.
So much more enjoyable.
Much better.
Okay, now let's get into the nitty-gritty of language learning.
All right.
Secret number 4, chunking and collocations.
Love these.
Can you break down for us what those are and why they're so important for fluency?
Okay, so imagine you're building a house.
Okay.
It would take forever if you had to lay each brick one by one, right?
Yeah, that would be very time-consuming.
Chunking and collocations are like having these prefabricated walls and roof sections.
Okay.
So you could assemble things much faster.
Okay.
And create a more, like, cohesive structure.
I'm liking this analogy. So instead of focusing on individual words, we should be looking for these chunks of language.
Yes. And these chunks are called collocations.
Okay.
They're so common in English.
Okay.
For example, we say heavy rain.
Okay.
Not strong rain.
Oh, that's interesting.
Or make a decision.
Yeah.
Not take a decision.
I see. I think I do that sometimes.
And that's where these collocations come in. They help you sound more natural and fluent by using combinations that native speakers just instinctively use.
Yeah, because I notice that sometimes, like, I know all the vocabulary, but I can't quite figure out how to put them together in the right way.
Exactly.
So how can listeners start incorporating these chunking and collocations into their routine?
So one really simple technique is to create what's called a phrase notebook.
Okay.
So as you're reading or listening and you come across these collocations, just jot them down in your notebook.
Okay.
Along with their meanings and maybe some example sentences.
I like that. And I would assume that these space repetition apps we talked about earlier would also be helpful for this.
Oh, they're amazing for this.
Yeah.
Because space repetition helps move information from your short-term memory to your long-term memory.
Okay.
By presenting you with that material at gradually increasing intervals.
Gotcha.
So it's like having a personal trainer, but for your vocabulary.
Nice. Okay, let's move on to secret number 5. And this one might be reassuring to our listener.
Okay.
It's okay to simplify your sentence structures, especially at the beginning.
Especially at the beginning?
Does that mean we don't have to worry about grammar?
No, grammar's still important.
Okay.
But fluency isn't about trying to build these like super complex sentences right away.
Right.
Actually, using shorter, simpler sentences can make you sound more confident and more fluent.
Interesting.
Especially when you're still developing your skills.
So it's more about clarity and conciseness than trying to, sound super smart with your grammar.
Exactly. Imagine you're explaining like a really complex concept to someone.
Okay.
It's way easier to understand if you break it down into smaller, bite-sized chunks, right?
Yeah, for sure. I definitely get caught up sometimes trying to construct these elaborate sentences, and it just ends up sounding confusing.
It happens to the best of us.
Yeah.
So there's a really simple technique from the guide.
Okay.
You start with a basic sentence.
Uh-huh.
Like, I enjoy reading.
Okay.
Then you gradually add details and complexity.
Oh, I like that.
So you could say, I enjoy reading books about history.
Okay.
And then expand it further. I enjoy reading books about history, especially biographies of influential leaders.
So you're building upon that simple sentence.
Yes.
Without making it overly complicated.
Exactly.
So it's finding that balance between clarity and complexity.
Yes.
And, starting simple and then gradually working your way up.
That's the key. And don't be afraid to experiment and see what feels more natural for you.
Yeah.
You might find that certain sentence structures are easier for you to produce than others.
Right.
The important thing is to keep practicing, keep refining those skills.
Practice makes perfect, as they say.
Or at least progress.
Or at least progress, yeah.
That's the goal.
Exactly.
Welcome back to our deep dive into the secrets of fluent English.
So we've already uncovered some really cool strategies so far.
Yeah, we're just getting started.
But I'm always up for more tips and tricks, you know what I mean? What else does this guide have in store for us?
It talks a lot about staying curious.
Okay.
And like making your learning engaging.
I can definitely see how that would be important. Like if you're genuinely interested in something, it's got to be way easier to stay motivated, right?
Exactly. It's like instead of slogging through those boring textbook exercises,
oh, yeah.
you're exploring subjects that actually pique your curiosity.
Right.
Whether it's, technology, sports, global news.
Okay.
Even something like cooking or fashion.
Ooh, fashion.
That's a good one.
Like imagine diving into the world of like fashion magazines and blogs and documentaries all in English.
Yeah.
You'd not only be picking up new vocabulary, but you'd also be gaining these insights into like cultural trends and perspectives.
Totally. That's exactly what it's all about.
Okay.
And it brings us to another important aspect of fluency, cultural immersion.
Oh, okay.
Because language is so much more than just, words and grammar.
Right.
It's a reflection of a culture's values, its history, its way of life.
I like that. So by immersing ourselves in English language media, we're kind of getting a deeper understanding of the culture that shapes the language.
Yeah, it's like you're getting this backstage pass to how native speakers actually think and express themselves.
That's cool. So it's not just about memorizing vocabulary lists. You're connecting with like the heart and soul of the language.
Yes, exactly.
I love those aha moments. When you finally grasp a tricky grammar concept.
Yeah.
Or you effortlessly use a new idiom in conversation.
The best feeling.
But this guide really emphasizes like acknowledging even the small victories.
Yes.
Those tiny steps forward that might seem insignificant at the time. Why is that so important?
It's all about maintaining motivation and momentum.
Okay.
Because language learning, it's a marathon, not a sprint.
For sure.
And there are going to be times when you hit a plateau, you feel discouraged.
Yeah, definitely been there.
But if you can train yourself to recognize and appreciate those tiny little sparks of progress,
okay,
it makes all the difference in staying the course.
It's like those fitness trackers that celebrate every 1,000 steps you take.
Yes.
Even if you haven't quite reached your daily goal yet.
Exactly. It's like those little nudges of encouragement.
They can be really motivating.
Very motivating. And it's important to celebrate those wins in a way that works for you.
Yeah.
So maybe it's treating yourself to a fancy coffee or watching an episode of your favorite show.
Okay.
Or just taking a moment to savor that feeling of accomplishment.
I like that. Okay, so we've talked about staying curious, immersing ourselves in the culture, celebrating those small wins.
Yeah.
What about the practical side of things?
Okay.
Like, how does this guide recommend structuring our study time?
It offers this sample weekly plan that emphasizes a balance between focused study and then real-world application.
I like that.
And of course, you can tailor it to your own needs and preferences.
Right.
But the general idea is to dedicate specific blocks of time to different aspects of language learning.
Got it. So for example, Mondays could be for grammar review.
Yes.
And maybe practicing conversation with a language partner.
Perfect. Exactly. Then midweek, you might focus on expanding your vocabulary.
Okay.
Maybe by learning new collocations.
Oh, yeah.
Related to a topic that you're passionate about.
Cool.
You could read articles, listen to podcasts, even watch documentaries on that subject. And actively, jot down any interesting phrases or expressions that you come across.
I like that. And maybe Fridays could be for, fine-tuning pronunciation through drills or shadowing exercises.
Exactly. And don't forget to leverage the weekend for immersive experiences.
Okay.
Maybe you attend an English language meetup.
Oh, cool.
Or you watch a movie without subtitles.
Oh, that's a good one.
Or you just chat with a friend in English.
Okay.
Those real-life interactions are so valuable.
Yeah, it sounds like the key is to create a routine that works for you and then stick to it consistently.
Absolute. Consistency is key.
Okay, but let's circle back to those 9 secrets for a second.
Okay.
And see if there are any specific strategies that we haven't really touched on yet.
Okay.
I know we talked about chunking and collocations in the first part.
Yeah.
Any additional tips on how to really master those?
One thing this guide emphasizes is the importance of context.
Okay.
So don't just memorize collocations in isolation. Try to encounter them in their natural habitat, so to speak.
Okay.
Pay attention to how they're used in articles, books, movies, conversations.
It's like learning a new dance move. You can watch videos and try to mimic the steps.
Yeah.
But it's not until you actually get out on the dance floor
Yeah.
and try it out in a real setting that you truly understand how it works.
I love that analogy.
That's what it feels like sometimes.
Yeah, the more you encounter those collocations in those authentic contexts,
Okay.
the later you'll understand their nuances and how to use them effectively.
Okay, so context is key. What about those of us who tend to overthink our sentences
Yeah.
and get stuck in grammar land?
Oh, yeah.
Any advice for overcoming that?
The guide reminds us that fluency is not about grammatical perfection.
Okay.
It's about conveying your message clearly and confidently. Even if your sentences aren't perfectly structured.
So it's better to speak a slightly imperfect sentence fluently?
Yes.
Than to stumble over a grammatically perfect sentence.
Exactly. And remember that technique we talked about earlier, sentence expansion?
Oh, yeah.
You can start with a basic sentence and gradually add details and complexity as you become more comfortable.
I like that. So the key is to prioritize clarity and flow over grammatical intricacy.
Especially in spoken English, yes.
Gotcha. Okay, I'm curious about those techniques we discussed for refining pronunciation, like reading aloud and shadowing.
Yeah.
Any additional tips for getting the most out of those?
Absolutely. When you're reading aloud, try to focus not only on the accuracy of your pronunciation,
Okay.
but also on the rhythm and intonation of the language.
So it's not just about saying the words correctly, but also about capturing that natural flow and expressiveness.
It's like adding musicality to your speech.
Oh, I like that a lot. And what about shadowing?
Okay, so one helpful tip is to break down the audio clip into smaller chunks.
Okay.
So instead of trying to shadow a whole podcast episode,
Right.
you could start with a short segment, maybe a minute or two.
Okay.
Listen to it several times, paying attention to the speaker's pronunciation and intonation. Then pause the audio and try to mimic the speaker as closely as possible.
Gotcha. So it's like practicing a short musical phrase on an instrument.
Yeah.
Getting each note and nuance just right before moving on to the next phrase.
I love that analogy. It's perfect. And just like with music practice, consistency is key.
Okay.
Even a few minutes of shadowing practice each day can really improve your pronunciation and fluency over time.
I know we've talked about setting SMART goals, but sometimes the sheer scope of language learning can feel overwhelming.
Yes.
Any advice for breaking down those fluency aspirations into more manageable chunks?
The guide suggests setting smaller, more specific goals
Okay.
that align with your overall fluency objectives.
Okay.
So, for example, instead of simply aiming to improve my vocabulary,
Yeah.
you could set a goal to learn 10 new collocations related to travel each week.
I like that that's much more concrete and measurable.
Yes, exactly. And it feels much more attainable than just saying, I want to learn all the English words.
Right. And it's still contributing to that broader goal of fluency.
Exactly. And don't forget to track your progress.
Oh, yeah.
Whether you use a notebook, a spreadsheet, a language learning app, having that visual representation of your achievements can be so motivating.
For sure. Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground in this segment, exploring all these practical tips and strategies for boosting fluency.
We have.
But before we move on to our final thoughts,
Okay.
I want to circle back to that concept of balance for a second.
Okay.
We've talked about balancing focused study with real-world application.
Right.
But what about balancing the different elements of language learning itself?
That's such a good point. Remember that three-legged stool analogy we discussed earlier?
Oh, yeah.
Fluency is built on that solid foundation of grammar, vocabulary, and pronunciation.
Uh-huh.
And neglecting any one of those areas can weaken that entire structure.
It's so tempting to focus on the areas we enjoy most.
Yeah.
Like, I love reading, so I could spend hours reading English novels or binge watching TV shows, but then maybe I neglect those grammar exercises or pronunciation drills.
Yeah, it's natural to gravitate towards what we find enjoyable.
Yeah.
But it's so important to find that balance.
Okay.
That ensures that you're dedicating sufficient time and attention to all three legs of the stool.
So how can our listener make sure they're maintaining that balance?
The guide suggests creating a cyclical practice schedule.
Okay.
Where you alternate between those different areas of language learning.
Okay.
So, for instance, you might focus on grammar exercises and conversation practice on Mondays.
Okay.
Vocabulary building and writing on Wednesdays.
Gotcha.
And pronunciation drills and listening comprehension on Fridays.
So you're cycling through.
Exactly.
And hitting all those different areas.
Yes. And of course, you can adjust the schedule to fit your own preferences and learning style.
Right. It's all about finding what works for you.
That's the key.
That's a great reminder because it's so easy to get caught up in one aspect of language learning and neglect the others.
Yeah.
But just like with a balanced diet, variety is key for overall fluency health.
I love that analogy. Variety is key.
All right. So here we are at the final part of our fluency deep dive.
Yeah, we've explored 9 secrets, a whole bunch of strategies. Now we just got to bring it all together.
So it's like our fluency action plan, ready to go to put it all into practice.
Exactly.
Okay, cool. So what are the key takeaways, the biggest ha moments from this whole guide?
You know, one of the most powerful ideas is that fluency. It's not like this finish line you cross.
Yeah.
It's this ongoing process. It's a journey of discovery and growth.
I like that because then you can enjoy the process and celebrate those milestones.
Exactly. And it kind of ties in with that whole learner's mindset thing. You know, it's shifting away from that fear of making mistakes.
Right.
To being curious about what you can learn from those mistakes.
Yeah.
You know, when you're not afraid to stumble, you're more likely to experiment, take risks.
Totally.
And really immerse yourself.
But mistakes can be discouraging sometimes, especially when you feel like you're stuck.
Right.
So how can our listener, use this guide to kind of break through those plateaus?
Well, immersion is key,
Okay.
This guide really emphasizes surrounding yourself with English as much as possible.
Yeah.
So podcasts, movies, music, even social media.
Yeah, I've been really into documentaries lately.
Oh, nice.
And there are so many good ones in English. It's a great way to learn about different topics and improve my listening at the same time.
That's awesome. And remember the power of real-world interactions.
Right.
Whether it's through language exchange apps or conversation clubs or just chatting with friends.
Yeah.
Those authentic experiences, they're so essential.
So it's putting those skills to the test in the real world.
Exactly. Which can be a little scary at first, but the more you do it, the more comfortable you'll get.
Right. Okay, so let's go back to one of the most practical strategies from the guide, chunking and collocations.
Yes.
It's such a good way to sound more natural and fluent.
I think such.
Instead of searching for the individual words, you just have these ready-made chunks.
It's like a secret weapon.
Exactly. So the more you see these collocations in real situations, the better you'll understand them.
Exactly. So it's not just about memorizing those lists.
Right.
It's about observing how those phrases are used in real life.
Yeah.
Noticing how a character in a movie uses a particular phrase.
Yeah.
Or paying attention to the word combinations in a news article.
So paying attention to those little things.
Exactly. And for those who get kind of bogged down by the grammar, remember fluency. It's not about perfection.
So it's okay to start with those simpler sentences.
Absolutely. And gradually add that complexity as you get more comfortable.
Right. Just focus on getting your message across.
Yes.
Okay. And then last but not least, those techniques for refining pronunciation, reading aloud, and shadowing.
Those are good ones.
Any final tips to make those even more effective?
So when you're reading aloud, try to really embody the language.
Okay.
Pay attention to that rhythm, intonation, the pauses, the emphasis, like you're an actor delivering a line.
Oh, channeling your inner Shakespeare.
Exactly. And when you're shadowing, focus on those smaller chunks.
Yeah.
Listen really closely to how that speaker is shaping those sounds and try to mimic them.
Yeah, and don't be afraid to record yourself. And then listen back.
Because sometimes it's eye-opening.
It's whoa, that's what I sounds like.
Exactly. And when it comes to staying motivated, remember those specific achievable goals.
Those SMART goals, right?
Yes.
But don't just vaguely aim for fluency.
Right.
Break it down into those smaller steps.
Exactly. So, for example, you could say, I'm going to learn 5 new idioms related to work this week.
Okay.
Or I'm going to practice shadowing for 10 minutes each day.
Okay.
Because those concrete targets, they'll help you stay focused.
And track that progress. so you can see how far you've come.
It's encouraging, especially on those days when you're not feeling so motivated.
Totally. Okay, so as we wrap up this deep dive, got to bring it back to balance one last time.
Yes.
Fluency, grammar, vocabulary, pronunciation. Make sure you're nurturing all three.
All three legs of the steel.
Exactly. So, if you're spending hours and hours on vocabulary, but you're not practicing your pronunciation.
Yeah, you got to shift your focus a little bit.
Got to find that equilibrium.
Exactly. And remember, the best way to learn is by doing. Don't be afraid to step outside that comfort zone.
Right.
And use your English in real life situations.
Exactly. So like ordering food at a restaurant, asking for directions, chatting with a stranger.
Yeah, those interactions, they'll build your skills and your confidence.
So there you have it. 9 secrets, a ton of strategies, and a reminder. Enjoy the journey.
Embrace it.
This guy asks a great question. How will you personalize these secrets and make them your own?
It's up to you.
So reflect on what you learned today and start creating your own path. Remember, language learning's an adventure. Keep practicing, keep exploring, and keep sharing your gift of language.
Until next time, happy language learning.
All right, let's dive in. We're unlocking a vault today filled with 25 uncommon but incredibly useful English words.
And these aren't just any old words, no. We're giving you the good stuff.
Yeah, these words are going to add some serious depth to your conversations. And maybe even a touch of magic, who knows?
Exactly. It's like we're equipping you with a whole new set of tools for expressing yourself.
So first up is astonishing. Everyone uses amazing or surprising.
Yeah, but astonishing, that's something else.
It is. It hits different, right?
Absolutely. It's like you've seen something that changes everything, It shifts your perspective.
Like if you were describing the Northern Lights and you're like, the Northern Lights display was absolutely astonishing. It just takes it up a notch.
Right. It's not just a description. It's an experience.
It really is. Okay, so let's talk about a word that gives you a completely different feeling. Bliss.
Bliss is so much more than just happy. It's like this deep sense of peace and joy.
Yeah, it's like that feeling you get when you're meditating or when you're out in nature. Have you ever felt that when you're out hiking?
Oh, absolutely.
It's like that feeling of pure contentment.
Yeah, and not just a fleeting emotion. It's like a state of being.
Yeah, exactly. Now, I think we've all experienced this next one. Sometimes you don't even have the right word for it, but this word is perfect. Dwindle.
Ah, yes. Like watching a campfire slowly die out. Or the last drops of coffee in your mug.
Oh, I can picture it perfectly.
Time, resources, and motivation, they can all dwindle away.
Yeah, it's that gradual decrease. Like it slowly fades away. It makes you really think about how you use your time and resources.
It does.
Okay, so speaking of resources, what about a word for making the most of what you have? Being smart about it. Frugal.
Frugal sometimes gets a bad rap like it means being cheap. But it's not about that at all. It's about being mindful,
Yeah, it's about intentionality.
Right.
Like making conscious decisions about your spending. So you're not wasting anything. It's almost like a whole philosophy.
It is. And it's not just about money. It's about everything. Time, energy, resources.
That's a good point. Okay, so let's move on to a word that's all about authenticity. Genuine.
Genuine is so important, especially these days.
I know, right? It's like everyone's trying to be someone they're not.
Exactly.
But genuine is all about being real, being true to yourself and to others too.
Yeah. And when you compliment someone's genuine nature, it means something.
It really does, because you're acknowledging that they're sincere, that they're not putting on an act.
Right. It's a compliment that goes a long way.
Okay, now let's talk about a word that can sometimes be a bit of a roadblock. Hinder.
Hinder, yeah. That's about the obstacles we face in life.
It could be anything, right? Procrastination, fear, even outside forces that are out of our control.
It's acknowledging those things that are holding us back.
Because once you acknowledge them, you can start to overcome them.
Exactly.
Now, have you ever worked on a project or maybe tried to learn a new skill and felt like it was just way too much?
All the time.
Complicated comes to mind. But what about the word intricate?
Ooh, intricate is good. It's like there's a lot going on.
Yeah, it's complex, but it's also beautifully structured, like a fancy watch or something.
Right, there's an order to it.
It's not just chaos, it's organized complexity.
I like that, organized complexity.
Okay, intricate. I'm going to use that one. Now, let's be real. We're all juggling a lot these days. Work, family, life, it's a lot.
It really is.
So the word juggle, it's pretty perfect, don't you think?
It is, because you're trying to keep all those bowls in the air.
Exactly. You're trying not to let anything drop.
And it takes practice, right? And focus.
Yeah, and a good sense of balance.
Definitely.
Okay, so switching gears a little bit, what about a word that describes something that's financially rewarding?
Lucrative.
Lucrative. It has a nice ring to it.
It does.
It makes you think of success, abundance.
Exactly. Like a career that's not just fulfilling, but also goes well.
Or even a side hustle.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, now let's talk about a word that captures that sense of wonder and amazement. Marvel.
Marvel, like when you see something truly breathtaking.
Oh, I remember the first time I saw the Grand Canyon, it was just incredible. I was in awe. Like, how did this even happen?
Right, it's that feeling of wonder.
Yeah, an appreciation for something bigger than yourself.
It's a powerful feeling.
It is. Okay, so we live in a world where everything is connected, right? Technology is everywhere. So the word ubiquitous is pretty fitting, wouldn't you say?
It is. It's like smartphones, social media, they're everywhere you look.
Yeah, we're surrounded by it, and it makes you think about the impact it's having.
On everything.
On everything. Okay, let's wrap up this first round with a word that's all about embracing the unknown. Venture.
Venture, that's about taking risks, stepping outside your comfort zone.
Exactly. It could be starting a business, traveling to a new country, or just trying something new. It's about that willingness to explore.
And to see where it leads you.
Yeah, and to grow along the way.
Exactly. Even if it's a little bit scary.
It is. Okay, so we've covered some amazing words in this first round, but we've got more to come.
You know, when we were talking about venture, it can be kind of scary, right?
Oh, yeah, totally.
Like, you never know what's going to happen.
Right, and sometimes you just don't feel ready, like reluctance.
Exactly. Like, you want to stay in your comfort zone. It feels safe there.
I get it. But I also think sometimes reluctance can be a good thing.
Oh, interesting. How so?
Like, it gives you time to really appreciate what you already have, before you jump into something new.
That's a good point. It's like that feeling right before you go on vacation.
Yes, that's a perfect example. Okay, so let's talk about a word that has a really cozy, comforting vibe to it. Quaint.
Quaint is just so charming, isn't it?
It is. It makes me think of those little towns you see in movies.
With the cobblestone streets and the cute little shops.
Yes, or like a cozy bookstore with a fireplace.
Yeah, it has that old-fashioned feel, doesn't it?
It does, like a simpler time.
Less hustle and bustle.
Yeah, definitely less stressful. Okay, so now let's move on to a word that's all about subtlety. Subtle.
Subtle is about those things you don't notice right away, but you make a big difference.
Like a faint smell of perfume. Or like the way someone raises an eyebrow.
Exactly. It's those little things that add depth and meaning.
Yeah. It's not about being loud or flashy. It's about the details.
Right. And sometimes those details are the most powerful.
They really are. Okay, so now let's talk about being practical and getting things done. Pragmatic.
Pragmatic people, they're the problem solvers.
Yeah, they're not afraid to roll up their sleeves and figure things out.
And they focus on what works, none of that fancy stuff, just solutions.
Yeah, and they're efficient too. They get right to the point.
Okay, so now let's switch gears again. What about a word for an idea that's just starting to form? Like a seed.
Notion.
Notion. I like that. It's like a glimmer of inspiration.
Exactly. Like you're not quite sure where it's going yet. Right. But it has potential. It could grow into something amazing, or it might just fizzle out. But it's still worth paying attention to.
Oh, absolutely. You never know where those little notions might lead.
Okay, so now let's talk about the opposite of being insightful. Oblivious.
Oh, yeah. We all know someone who's oblivious.
They're just completely unaware of what's going on around them.
It's like they're in their own little world.
They can be kind of funny sometimes, but also a little frustrating.
Definitely. Like, how do you not see what's right in front of you?
Right. You got to pay attention to the cues.
Exactly.
Otherwise, you're going to miss out.
Okay, remember we talked about keen earlier? It's like the opposite of oblivious.
Oh, yeah, I see what you mean.
Keen is all about being alert and engaged, eager to learn.
While oblivious is like totally clueless.
Exactly.
Makes sense. Okay, so what about a word for being really passionate about something? Like super enthusiastic.
Zealous.
Zealous, that's the one. Like you're so into it, you can't contain yourself. It's contagious.
Yeah, and it inspires other people.
It does. Okay, now let's celebrate what makes each of us unique. Quirks.
Quirks are those little things that make you, you.
They're like your signature moves.
Exactly, like that friend who always wears mismatched socks.
Or the coworker who collects those weird little figurines.
Yeah, it's those things that make you interesting.
I love that. Quirks are awesome. Okay, so what about a word that describes who we are at our core?
Identity.
Identity, that's a big one.
It is. It's about your values, your beliefs, your experiences.
Everything that makes you, you. And it's always changing too, right?
Exactly. We're always growing and evolving.
Okay, before we move on, I want to talk about thrive again for a second.
Oh, thrive's a great word.
It is. It's like you're not just surviving, you're flourishing.
You're living your best life.
Yeah, you're reaching your full potential. Okay, so we've talked about a lot of great words, but we've got one more set to go. Okay, we're back, ready for the final round. What words are we looking at this time?
Well, let's start with yearn. It's a powerful word, you know?
It is. It makes me think of like really deep longing, for something you can't have.
Yeah, like a lost love or a dream that feels impossible.
Right. It's that ache in your heart. But there's also beauty in it, what do you think?
Oh, absolutely. It shows how deeply we can feel.
Yeah, and it can be a motivator too. Like that yearning pushes you to try harder.
It does. It can push you to venture out and try new things.
Oh, I see the connection. Like yearn is the fuel and venture is the action.
Exactly.
Okay, so let's talk about a word that's really important for success. Tenacity.
Oh, tenacity is huge. It's all about never giving up.
Yeah, it's like you're determined to reach your goal no matter what. You don't let anything stop you.
Right. You just keep pushing through.
It makes me think about our listeners, How do they handle challenges? Are they tenacious?
That's a great question. It's something to think about.
It is. Okay, so tenacity is about never giving up. But what about persistent?
Persistent is a little different. It's more about consistency.
Okay, so like you're steadily working towards something, even if it takes a long time.
Yeah, it's like that saying, slow and steady wins the race.
Exactly. You just keep at it and eventually you break through. Okay, so now let's talk about a word that describes something truly significant. Monumental.
Monumental, like a historical event that changes everything.
Yeah, or like a scientific discovery, or even a personal achievement that transforms your life.
Exactly. It's a turning point.
It makes you think about what really matters, what leaves a mark on the world.
It does. And sometimes those monumental events are met with a lot of excitement. Remember zeal?
Yeah, like monumental describes the event and zeal describes the feeling.
Right. Okay, and speaking of feelings, let's revisit thrive. It's such an important word, especially when we're talking about personal growth.
It is. It's like you're not just existing, you're thriving.
You're living a full, meaningful life.
Yeah, you're constantly growing and evolving. Okay, so for our final word, we're going to talk about what makes you, identity.
Identity is a complex thing, isn't it? It's all the pieces that make you who you are.
Yeah, your beliefs, your experiences, your values, everything. And it's not fixed either, right?
No, it's always changing. We're always learning and growing.
I love that. It's like we're all works in progress. Well, I think we've covered some incredible words today. I feel like I've learned so much.
Me too, and I hope our listeners have as well.
I hope they've been inspired to use these words in their own lives and to keep exploring language. There's always more to discover.
That's right. Words are powerful tools. Use them wisely.
So true. Well, that's all the time we have for today. Thanks for joining us on this word journey.